If you look around my office, you might realize I have kind of a love for dark, twisted cartoons. And a lot of that may be because I grew up with a lot of dark, twisted cartoons. Now, I'm not talking about the ones like Batman or ones that were meant for older kids. I'm talking about the ones that were meant for little kids, and they probably should have been made for little kids. And I loved the hell out of them. I enjoyed how much they scared me. I loved how every time you got through one, you felt a little tougher. So I'm doing a series reacting and reviewing them. We're gonna analyze how creative they are, how dark they are, and if the dark, twisted tone was warranted. So join me in taking a look at some dark tunes. Well, you've heard me shit on the cinematic versions. Let's talk about the good one for once. How the Grinch Stole Christmas was released in 1966. It's an absolute classic. You know it and I know it. Let's look it over together. One of the funny stories I found out doing research on this is one day Chuck Jones called up Theodore Geisel, Dr. Seuss, when working on this and designing it, and he said, "What color's the Grinch?" And Geisel said he didn't know. For printing reasons, his books didn't allow much color. It was just black, white, and a little bit of red. So they talked about it, and Chuck Jones eventually went with green for a couple reasons. One, green was a very unnatural color to see on a furry, hairy animal in nature, so that looked very unusual. Two, it would be Christmas colors because he would be wearing the Santa outfit as well, the red outfit. And three, he said it was the color of the worst used cars he ever drove. They usually became green either over time or he bought them when they were green and they always grossed him out, so that apparently inspired that choice. The songs were composed by Albert Haig, who older crowds probably know him from the TV show Fame, but younger crowds probably know him as the psychiatrist from Space Jam. Probably not the first thing he would want to be known by, but I don't think he would mind either. Welcome Christmas while we stand. These backgrounds, once again designed by the fantastic, legendary Maurice Noble, did a lot of Chuck Jones cartoons and usually had just some of the best backgrounds. We brought him up a ton of times here. And it's not like this production had a ton of money behind it. It wasn't necessarily cheap, but it did not have a super grand budget. So for them to take these very simple shapes, but very bright, prominent primary colors and just really make them jump out at you, both really capturing the look of Dr. Seuss's world, but also keeping very true to Maurice Noble's style as well. A lot of Seuss buildings and designs are very curvy or very crooked, they're very exaggerated, and a lot of Noble designs are also very grand, but also very small. There's a lot of stuff in the foreground, a lot of stuff in the background too. It's very stretched and very warped. It was a match made in heaven. I mean, they just go together perfectly. Off the bat, Cindy Lou is going to have more detail to her face because she's going to be one of the main characters in this. So you'll notice there's more wrinkles on the hair. She has a little more chubby cheeks, but at the same time, they keep the simplicity there by never showing her feet. The outfit she's wearing covers her feet, and you never see any moving at the bottom, which I think is a callback to the Dover Boys. The woman in that, you never saw her feet. She just kind of glided. So it's a good way to save on animation, but also very adorable.
But the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville.
That's a little more than just, isn't it? That's not just north of Whoville. That's a mountain. I also like that the Grinch's skin will have pockets whenever the pose calls for it.
It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right.
Geisel would often say the Grinch looked much more like the director Chuck Jones than it did his Grinch. Actually, the two very much do look like the creators. This one looks like Chuck Jones. I think the original kind of looks like Theodore Geisel. And what I like about this one too is that he really does have the Boris Karloff look to him as well. Boris Karloff, of course, did the voice, and he was the Frankenstein monster, and he is both the narrator and the Grinch in this. And I really feel like the thick eyebrows and the lines on his forehead and that super frown, I really think it's a good mix of both the director and the actor.
Staring down from his cave.
A great angle there. Just some amazing angles and just phenomenal drawings of just how threatening and gross and weird and distorted they can make this creature. Even the line work with it being paintbrush, there's almost kind of a pencil-y look to it. In some of the close-ups, you see the smeared paintbrushes on there, and I think that adds a lot to his kind of furry, not just furry, but very messed up furry appearance.
For he knew every who down in Whoville beneath.
Now Max, from here on out, is going to be a very major part of the Grinch. In both movies, he plays a huge part. In this, he plays a huge part. He was not a big part in the books. He was more just a little character in the corner that would see something and react, but because they were taking what was a very short book, understandably so, and they had to stretch it out, a lot of that was due to this character, his reactions to everything, him trying to be the reindeer, them going down the mountain and him screwing up. Little things like that really help stretch it out. You didn't need to give an origin story or have his face and breasts. Okay. I promised myself I wasn't going to shit on too much.
And they're hanging their stockings.
Take a shot every time the Grinch's teeth change. They are almost never the same. Sometimes he just has 3 on the top and bottom. Sometimes he has like 50 in his mouth. Sometimes they're straight. Sometimes they're crooked. Sometimes there's teeth on top of teeth. That's one of my favorite things to watch, is just the different placements of his teeth. I swear he doesn't have a skull. It's just more teeth that fills up his head.
They'll blow their hoo-hoobers, they'll bang their garkinkers.
This is another way to fill up time. Just list all the various things that the Who's are gonna do. You can make up a lot of great wordplay and a lot of imaginative designs and stuff. And in many ways it's identifiable. There are people that don't like the holidays because it is loud and kids making so much noise and playing with so much stuff and so much energy in contrast to someone that does not have a lot of energy and likes the peace and quiet. So again, it isn't just filler. It is establishing something that you can relate to. I think that's one of the reasons people do relate to the Grinch. You know, you don't need to give a complex backstory. Sometimes just being annoyed by the things other people love is a totally legit reason. What's interesting too is Cindy Lou is so connected to the Grinch. You know, she's the exact opposite. He's big and intimidating looking. She's very small and cute looking, but she doesn't have much dialogue in this. So they try to kind of get her in wherever they can. And again, they give her this really detailed design in contrast to the other Who's, so she really sticks out. So even though she doesn't say much and even technically doesn't do much, you remember her. You really remember her as the symbol of everything that's good about the Who's and Christmas. So it's a very clever way of sort of working in these themes and ideas and, the innocence of Christmas and all that without necessarily hammering it in.
The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea.
There's that wonderful smile that keeps going and going, and what I like is when it finally runs out of room on the face, it goes to the top of his head. His head somehow continues the smile. That's such a wonderful little touch.
You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch.
That's Thurl Ravenscroft as the singer. Tony the Tiger, also the voice in the Haunted Mansion, did all sorts of voiceover work. Yeah, phenomenal singer, just a phenomenal voice in general. And he had that voice doing Tony the Tiger pretty much until the end. He did not lose that voice at all.
All I need is a reindeer.
So from here, pretty much until maybe the last 5 minutes, the whole special is about him stealing every kid's favorite holiday, pretty much. And that's one of the reasons I love it. That's one of the reasons I consider it a dark tune, is because you're just watching this guy steal everything. He's stealing Christmas. He's stealing presents from kids. He's going so over the top to make sure there is nothing left. But much like Christmas Carol, the darker you go with it, the more appreciative you'll be when it gets to the happy ending. And the happy ending in this matches so perfect. It's just an absolute brilliant contrast. This is definitely some old school Coyote and Roadrunner stuff that, of course, the director used to do. He used to work with Looney Tunes. And you can just see something like this, like the Coyote getting behind the sleigh and the sleigh going faster than him. That happened a lot with Gravity. One thing would go faster than the other. And again, this is filling up the running time, but it's also creating more of a connection between the Grinch and Max. You get an idea of how their relationship works. And you like them. They're fun to watch. They don't even have to say that much. Even these mountains have kind of that canyon bohemian look from those Roadrunner cartoons, doesn't it? It's like it's the exact same locations, there's just snow on it.
This is stop number 1.
Even the ladder isn't straight. Just one attention to detail. Like, everything has to be a little off, a little crooked. Even the ladder is a Dr. Seuss ladder. It's a Maurice Noble ladder. I feel like you really feel those details. It just makes the world feel so much more livable and believable.
He got stuck only once for a minute or two.
That part always freaked me out as a kid. I'm not claustrophobic, but just the idea of being stuck in a chimney like that just really freaked me out. And I guess the person who wrote Gremlins felt the same thing.
He slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant.
See, that's a nice thing about animating Dr. Seuss, is you can literally show him slithering and slunking and doing all that. I mean, you can do a drawing in a book, but you can just literally get more animated in a cartoon. You can actually show him doing these actions that you're describing.
Pop guns, pampoongas, pantookas, and drums, checkerboards.
Again, you're stretching it out. You're describing what he's taking and how he's taking it. And it doesn't sound like much, but to a kid, you're just like, oh my god, I can't believe he's taking all that. What? Not the pop guns, not the bamboozle. What's a bamboozle? Who cares? He's taking it. And the more and more you get into that and you get invested in it, the bigger the payoff's gonna be, like I said, at the end.
Why, that Grinch even took the last can of Who hash.
Guess they legalized it before we did.
Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree?
Cindy Lou, voiced by the late great June Foray, did voice acting until her death when she was 99 years old. I mean, just an absolute legend was Rocky and Bullwinkle. She's Magica from DuckTales. She was the grandma in Mulan. She has just countless Looney Tunes characters, so just an absolute legend.
So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear.
Another great angle there, just the contrast with how tiny she is and then how big you make the shadow, and you can still even see those teeth in the shadow. I mean, just his silhouette is just so memorable.
Then he patted her head and he got her a drink and he sent her to bed.
When I was a kid, I always thought that was odd that he got her a drink. Like, why include that in the story? And then when he says,
And when Cindy Lou Who was in bed with her cup,
it was to rhyme stuff the tree up with something and cup rhymed. Even as a kid, I thought that was a little odd.
Your soul is an appalling dump heap.
Case in point about the budget, they clearly didn't have enough money to do new animation here, so they just repeated some of the ones they had earlier and laid them over each other.
The 3 words that best describe you are...
That's my favorite, stealing the ice cubes. That's my absolute favorite. They can still celebrate Christmas with ice cubes, but not anymore. He took them.
10,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet.
Fantastic angles here. Again, this is very reminiscent of the Looney Tunes days when Chuck Jones would get these really great angles. There's one where there's a shootout with Daffy, and it's part of the joke. It's how many weird angles can they get in such a short amount of time. And again, you can just tell he carried it over because it does create such atmosphere and such an environment. Despite such a small budget, you just feel the size of this place. You feel how grand these mountains are. You can hear the echo practically. And of course, the big payoff, which I'm not gonna lie, I did figure out when I was a little kid. I'm curious if you did too, because I remember I saw it in a classroom with a bunch of little kids, and they were all really surprised. But how many of you figure that out? Either way, it's such a perfect payoff to all of this. And what I really like, unlike the other versions, the Who's always wake up, where is everything? Oh, well, and they teach themselves what Christmas is really about. I like they don't even notice. They are so excited and so in tune with what Christmas is and why it's important. To me, that's the perfect way you could do that. Great warm colors there. We've seen so much of the blue sky, which has also been phenomenal, but yeah, just look at how much that pops. Look how warm and inviting that feels. Just so, man, this is so goddamn good. Even the simple act here of dissolving the different color backgrounds, you go from one warm color to another, but even just the colors he creates in between, going from purple to orange to yellow to orange again, back to yellow again, the slow dissolve in between those really gives way to a lot of interesting colors there. I know the expressions show him transforming there, but just the background, something so simple as dissolving those colors, can also be so transformative. And again, this is kind of filling up the running time, but it works because it shows he's so filled with joy and he so now understands the meaning of Christmas that it gives him all of this strength. And it does add a little bit of a climax to it as well, without going too long and while staying true to what the story is.
He rode into Whoville, he brought back their toys.
I love the Who's moving there like it's some sort of stretchy fence. I don't know why that cracks me up.
Welcome Christmas while we stand, heart to heart and hand in hand.
Oh, so good. So good. God, that's just great. Every time I see this, it gets better, and I'm so glad, that they updated on Blu-ray and DVD and so forth. Every version just looks more crisp and more clean and more clear, but you can still see some of, like, a little bit of the fingerprints on there and smudges and stuff, because it still does give it that texture. But man, the clarity is amazing because this artwork is just so amazing. The writing is so amazing. The acting so amazing. The music's so amazing. And all just in this short amount of time, 25 minutes. You don't need much, and they just nail it. They just knew exactly what was required for this story, and they just absolutely nailed it. Let me know what I really like to know when you saw this. I'm assuming you saw it as a child. Did you figure out what the lesson was going to be at the end? Did you figure out that the Who's weren't going to care and that it was going to be about the true meaning of Christmas? It wasn't going to be about the presents and everything? Or were you watching this just horrified, like, oh my god, I can't believe he's stealing Christmas, and we're really surprised at the end? I knew what was coming, or at least I had a feeling as a little kid, but I still loved it. I loved the journey. I loved the message even as a kid, because I did love Christmas so much and still love Christmas so much. So yeah, God, just, what's your favorite part too? I'm sorry, I just love this so much. This is just, watching it again all the way through and talking about what's so great about it, I don't know, fills my heart up, man. I just adore it. So, but what's your favorite part? Were you fooled by the end as well? Thinking the Who's were going to be upset. Let me know your thoughts. Merry Christmas, man. God, it's just so good. Hey everyone, if there's any particular cartoon you want me to look at as being very dark or twisted, leave it in the comments below. Again, I'm not really looking for movie scenes or cartoons meant for teenagers or older. I'm talking about ones meant for little kids, but still scare the shit out of you. Whether it's an old cartoon or a new cartoon, let me know what you want me to look at.